biogeochemical cycles. In earth science, a biogeochemical cycle is a pathway by which a chemical substance moves through both biotic, the biosphere, and abiotic, lithosphere, atmosphere, and hydrosphere compartments of the earth. A cycle is a series of change which comes back to the starting point and which can be repeated. Some of the important cycles are the carbon cycle, which is the biogeochemical cycle by which carbon is exchanged among the biosphere, pedosphere, geosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere of the earth. It describes the movement of carbon as it is recycled and reused throughout the biosphere. The global carbon cycle is now usually divided into the following major reservoirs of carbon interconnected by pathways of exchange. Atmosphere. Carbon in the Earth's atmosphere exists in two main forms, carbon dioxide and methane. Carbon dioxide leaves the atmosphere through photosynthesis, thus entering the terrestrial and oceanic biospheres. Carbon dioxide also dissolves directly from the atmosphere into bodies of water, which is oceans, lakes, etc., as well as dissolving in precipitation as raindrops fall through the atmosphere. When dissolved in water, carbon dioxide reacts with water molecules and forms carbonic acid, which contributes to ocean acidity. It can then be absorbed by rocks through weathering. It can also acidify other surfaces it touches or be washed into the ocean. Terrestrial biosphere. The terrestrial biosphere includes the organic carbon in all land-living organisms, both alive and dead, as well as carbon stored in soils. About 500 gigatons of carbon are stored above ground in plants and other living organisms, while soil holds approximately 1500 gigatons of carbon. Most carbon in the terrestrial biosphere is organic carbon, while about a third of soil carbon is stored in inorganic forms such as calcium carbonate. Carbon leaves the terrestrial biosphere in several ways. The combustion or respiration of organic carbon releases it rapidly into the atmosphere. It can also be exported into the oceans through rivers or remain sequestered in soils in the form of inert carbon. Carbon stored in soil can remain there for up to thousands of years before being washed into rivers by erosion or released into the atmosphere through soil respiration. The length of carbon sequestering in soil is dependent on local climatic conditions and thus changes in the course of climate change. Oceans. Oceans contain the greatest quantity of actively cycled carbon in this world and are second only to the lithosphere in the amount of carbon they store. The ocean's surface layer holds large amounts of dissolved organic carbon that is exchanged rapidly with the atmosphere. Carbon enters the ocean mainly through the dissolution of atmospheric carbon dioxide, which is converted into carbonate. It can also enter the oceans through rivers as dissolved organic carbon. It is converted by organisms into organic carbon through photosynthesis and can either be exchanged throughout the food chain or precipitated into the ocean's deeper, more carbon-rich layers as dead soft tissue or in shells as calcium carbonate. It circulates in this layer for long periods of time before either being deposited as sediment or eventually returned to the surface waters through thermohaline circulation. Geological carbon cycle. Most of the Earth's carbon is stored inertly in the Earth's lithosphere. Carbon can leave the geosphere in several ways. Carbon dioxide is released during the metamorphosis of carbonate rocks when they are subducted into the Earth's mantle. This carbon dioxide can be released into the atmosphere and ocean through volcanoes and hotspots. It can also be removed by humans through the direct extraction of kerogens in the form of fossil fuels. After extraction, fossil fuels are burned to release energy, thus emitting the carbon they store in the atmosphere. Impacts of environment due to human influence. The largest and most direct human influence on the carbon cycle is through direct emissions from burning fossil fuels, which transfers carbon from the geosphere into the atmosphere. Humans also influence the carbon cycle indirectly by changing the terrestrial and oceanic biosphere. Over the past several centuries, human-caused land use and land cover change has led to the loss of biodiversity, which lowers ecosystems' resilience to environmental stresses and decrease their ability to remove carbon from the atmosphere. It often leads to the release of carbon from the terrestrial ecosystems into the atmosphere. Deforestation for agricultural purposes removes forests which hold large amounts of carbon and replace them generally with agricultural or urban areas. Higher temperatures and carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere increase decomposition rates in soil, thus returning carbon dioxide stored in plant material more quickly to the atmosphere. Let us now look at the nitrogen cycle. The nitrogen cycle is the process by which nitrogen is converted between its various chemical forms. This transformation can be carried out through both biological and physical processes. The majority of Earth's atmosphere, which is around 78%, is nitrogen, making it the largest pool of nitrogen. Nitrogen is present in the environment in a wide variety of chemical forms, including organic nitrogen, ammonium, nitrite, nitrate, nitric oxide, or inorganic nitrogen gases. Organic nitrogen may be in the form of a living organism, humus, or in the intermediate products of organic matter decomposition. The processes of the nitrogen cycle transform nitrogen from one place to another. Many of those processes are carried out by microbes, either in their effort to harvest energy or to accumulate nitrogen in a form needed for their growth. Nitrogen fixation. Atmospheric nitrogen must be processed or fixed to be used by plants. Most fixation is done by free-living or symbiotic bacteria known as diazotrophs. These bacteria have the nitrogenase enzyme that combines gaseous nitrogen with hydrogen to produce ammonia, which is converted by the bacteria into other organic compounds. Today, about 30% of the total fixed nitrogen is produced industrially using the Haber-Bosch process, which uses high temperatures and pressures to convert nitrogen gas and a hydrogen source, which could be natural gas or petroleum, into ammonia. Assimilation. Plants take nitrogen from the soil by absorption through their roots in the form of either nitrate ions or ammonium ions. Most nitrogen obtained by terrestrial animals can be traced back to the eating of plants at some stage of the food chain. Ammonification. When a plant or animal dies or an animal expels waste, the initial form of nitrogen is organic. Bacteria or fungi convert the organic nitrogen within the remains back into ammonium, a process called ammonification or mineralization. Nitrification. The conversion of ammonia to nitrate is performed primarily by soil-living bacteria and other nitrifying bacteria. In the primary stage of nitrification, the oxidation of ammonium is performed by bacteria such as the Nitrosomonas species, which converts ammonia to nitrites. Other bacterial species, such as Nitrobacter, are responsible for the oxidation of nitrites into nitrates. It is important for the ammonia to be converted to nitrates because accumulated nitrites are toxic to plant life. Denitrification. Denitrification is the reduction of nitrates back into the largely inert nitrogen gas, completing the nitrogen cycle. This process is performed by bacterial species such as the Pseudomonas and the Clostridium in anaerobic conditions. The denitrifying bacteria use nitrates in the soil to carry out respiration and consequently produce nitrogen gas, which is inert and unavailable to plants. Human influences on the nitrogen cycle. As a result of extensive cultivation of legumes, particularly soy, alfalfa, and clover, growing use of the Haber-Bosch process in the creation of chemical fertilizers, and pollution emitted by vehicles and industrial plants, human beings have more than doubled the annual transfer of nitrogen into biologically available forms. Nitrous oxide has risen in the atmosphere as a result of agricultural fertilization, biomass burning, cattle and feedlots, and industrial sources. It has deleterious effects in the stratosphere, where it breaks down and acts as a catalyst in the destruction of atmospheric ozone. Nitrous oxide is also a greenhouse gas and is currently the third largest contributor to global warming after carbon dioxide and methane. Ammonia in the atmosphere has tripled as the result of human activities. It is a reactant in the atmosphere where it acts as an aerosol, decreasing air quality and clinging to the water droplets, eventually resulting in nitric acid that produces acid rain. Atmospheric ammonia and nitric acid also damage respiratory systems. Wastewater treatment. On-site sewage facilities such as septic tanks and holding tanks release large amounts of nitrogen into the environment by discharging through a drain field into the ground. Microbial activity consumes the nitrogen and other contaminants in the wastewater. One health risk associated with drinking water with greater than 10 parts per million nitrate is the development of methemoglobinemia and has been found to cause blue baby syndrome. Environmental impacts. Additional risks posed by increased availability of inorganic nitrogen in aquatic ecosystems include water acidification, eutrophication of fresh and saltwater systems, and toxicity issues for animals, including humans. Eutrophication often leads to lower dissolved oxygen levels in the water column, including hypoxic and anoxic conditions which can cause death of aquatic fauna. The oxygen cycle. The oxygen cycle is the biogeochemical cycle that describes the movement of oxygen within its three main reservoirs: the atmosphere, which is the air, the total content of biological matter within the biosphere, the global sum of all ecosystems, and the lithosphere, which is the Earth's crust. Failures in the oxygen cycle within the hydrosphere, the combined mass of water found on, under, and over the surface of planet Earth, can result in development of hypoxic zones. The main driving factor of the oxygen cycle is photosynthesis, which is responsible for the modern Earth's atmosphere and life on Earth. The phosphorus cycle. This is a biogeochemical cycle that describes the movement of phosphorus through the lithosphere, hydrosphere, and biosphere. Process of the cycle. Initially, phosphate weathers from rocks and minerals, and most common mineral being apatite. Overall, small losses occur in terrestrial environments by leaching and erosion through the action of rain. In soil, phosphate is observed on iron oxides, aluminum oxides, clay surfaces, and organic matter particles and becomes incorporated. Plants and fungi can also be active in making phosphorus soluble. Unlike other cycles, phosphorus cannot be found in the air as a gas. It only occurs under highly reducing conditions as the gas phosphine. Phosphatic minerals. The availability of phosphorus in an ecosystem is restricted by the rate of release of this element during weathering. The release of phosphorus from apatite dissolution is a key control on the ecosystem productivity. The primary mineral with significant phosphorus content, apatite, undergoes carbonation. Little of this released phosphorus is taken up by biota, whereas a larger proportion reacts with other soil minerals. Available phosphorus is found in a biogeochemical cycle in the upper soil profile, where phosphorus found at lower depths is primarily involved in a geochemical reactions with secondary minerals. Plant growth depends on the rapid root uptake of phosphorus released from dead organic matter in the biochemical cycle. Phosphorus is limited in supply for plant growth. Phosphates move quickly through plants and animals. However, the process that moves them through the soil or ocean are very slow, making the phosphorus cycle overall one of the slowest biogeochemical cycles. Human influences. Nutrients are important to the growth and survival of living organisms and hence are essential for development and maintenance of healthy ecosystems. Humans have greatly influenced the phosphorus cycle by mining phosphorus, converting it into a fertilizer, and by shipping fertilizer and products around the globe. Waters are enriched in phosphorus from farms runoff and from effluent that is inadequately treated before it is discharged to waters. Repeated application of liquid hog manure in excess to crop needs can have detrimental effects on soil phosphorus status. In poorly drained soils or in areas where snow melt can cause periodic waterlogging. This causes a sharp increase in phosphorus concentration in solution and phosphorus can be leached. The sulfur cycle. The sulfur cycle is the collection of processes by which sulfur moves to and from minerals and living systems. Sulfur cycle. Steps of the sulfur cycle are: number 1, mineralization of organic sulfur into inorganic forms such as hydrogen sulfide, elemental sulfur as well as sulfide minerals. Number 2, oxidation of hydrogen sulfide and elemental sulfur to sulfate. Number 3, reduction of sulfate to sulfide. Number 4, incorporation of sulfide into organic compounds including metal-containing derivatives. The human impact. Human activities have a major effect on the global sulfur cycle. The burning of coal, natural gas, and other fossil fuels has greatly increased the amount of sulfur in the atmosphere and ocean and depleted the sedimentary rock sink. Without human impact, sulfur would stay tied up in rocks for millions of years until it was uplifted through tectonic events and then released through erosion and weathering processes. Instead, it is being drilled, pumped, and burned at a steadily increasing rate. When sulfur dioxide is emitted as an air pollutant, it forms sulfuric acid through reactions with water in the atmosphere. Once the acid is completely dissociated in water, the pH can drop to 4.3 or lower, causing damage to both man-made and natural systems. The water cycle. The water cycle, also known as the hydrologic cycle, describes the continuous movement of water on, above and below the surface of the earth. The mass of the water on earth remains fairly constant over time, but the partitioning of the water into the major reservoirs of ice, fresh water, saline water and atmospheric water is variable depending on a wide range of climatic variables. The water moves from one reservoir to another, such as from river to ocean or from ocean to atmosphere by the physical processes of evaporation, condensation, precipitation, infiltration, runoff and subsurface flow. In doing so, the water goes through different phases: liquid, solid, which is the ice, and gas, which is the vapor. The water cycle involves the exchange of energy which leads to temperature changes. For instance, when water evaporates, it takes up energy from its surroundings and cools the environment. When it condenses, it releases energy and warms the environment. These heat exchanges influence climate. The evaporative phase of the cycle purifies water, which then replenishes the land with fresh water. The flow of liquid water and ice transports minerals across the globe. It is also involved in reshaping the geological features of the earth through processes including erosion and sedimentation. The water cycle is also essential for the maintenance of most life and ecosystems on the planet. Many different processes lead to movements and phase changes in water. Precipitation. Condensed water vapor that falls to the earth's surface. Most precipitation occurs as rain but also includes snow, hail, fog drip, graupel, and sleet. Canopy interception. The precipitation that is intercepted by plant foliage eventually evaporates back to the atmosphere rather than falling to the ground. Snow melt. The runoff produced by melting snow. Runoff. The variety of ways by which water moves across the land. This includes both surface runoff and channel runoff. As it flows, the water may seep into the ground, evaporate into the air, become stored in lakes or reservoirs, or be extracted for agricultural or other human uses. Infiltration. The flow of water from the ground surface into the ground. Once infiltrated, the water becomes soil moisture or groundwater. Subsurface flow. The flow of water underground in the vadose zone and aquifers. Subsurface water may return to the surface or eventually seep into the oceans. Water returns to the land surface at lower elevation than where it infiltrated under the force of gravity or gravity-induced pressures. Groundwater tends to move slowly and is replenished slowly, so it can remain in aquifers for thousands of years. Evaporation. The transformation of water from liquid to gas phases as it moves from the ground or bodies of water into the overlying atmosphere. The source of energy for evaporation is primarily solar radiation. Sublimation. The state change directly from solid water, snow or ice to water vapor. Deposition. This refers to changing of water vapor directly to ice. Advection. The movement of water in solid, liquid or vapor states through the atmosphere. Without advection, water that evaporated over the oceans could not be precipitated over the land. Condensation. The transformation of water vapor to liquid water droplets in the air, creating clouds and fogs. Transpiration. The release of water vapor from plants and soil into the air. Water vapor is the gas that cannot be seen. Percolation. Water flows vertically through the soil and rocks under the influence of gravity. Plate tectonics. Water enters the mantle via subduction of oceanic crust. Water returns to the surface via volcanism. After evaporating, the residence time in the atmosphere is about 9 days before condensing and falling to the earth as a precipitation. The water cycle describes the processes that drive the movement of water throughout the hydrosphere. However, much more water is in storage for long periods of time than is actually moving through the cycle. The storehouses for the vast majority of all water on earth are oceans. Human activities that alter the water cycle include agriculture, industry, alteration of the chemical composition of the atmosphere, construction of dams, deforestation, removal of groundwater from wells, water abstraction from rivers, and urbanization. Effects on climate. The water cycle is powered from solar energy. 86% of the global evaporation occurs from the oceans, reducing their temperature by evaporative cooling. Without the cooling, the effect of evaporation on the greenhouse effect would lead to a much higher surface temperature of 67 degrees centigrade and a warmer planet. Effects on the biogeochemical cycling. While the water cycle is itself a biogeochemical cycle, flow of water over and beneath the earth is a key component of the cycling of other biogeochemicals. Runoff is responsible for almost all of the transport of eroded sediment and phosphorus from land to water bodies. The salinity of the oceans is derived from the erosion and transport of dissolved salts from the land. Both runoff and groundwater flow play significant roles in transporting nitrogen from land to water bodies. The rock cycle, transition to igneous. When rocks are pushed deep under the Earth's surface, they may melt into magma. If the conditions no longer exist for the magma to stay in its liquid state, it will cool and solidify into an igneous rock. A rock that cools within the Earth is called intrusive or plutonic and will cool very slowly, producing a coarse-grained texture. As a result of volcanic activity, magma, which is called lava when it reaches the Earth's surface, may cool very rapidly while being on the Earth's surface exposed to the atmosphere and are called extrusive or volcanic rocks. These rocks are fine-grained and sometimes cool so rapidly that no crystals can form and result in a natural glass such as the obsidian. Any of the three main types of rocks, igneous, sedimentary and metamorphic rocks, can melt into magma and cool into igneous rocks. Transition to metamorphic. Rocks exposed to high temperatures and pressures can be changed physically or chemically to form a different rock called metamorphic. Regional metamorphism refers to the effects on large masses of rocks over a wide area, typically associated with mountain building events within organic belts. These rocks commonly exhibit distinct bands of different mineralogy and colors called foliation. Another main type of metamorphism is caused when the body of rock comes in contact with an igneous intrusion that heats up the surrounding country rock. This contact metamorphism results in a rock that is altered and recrystallized by the extreme heat of the magma and or by the addition of fluids from the magma that add chemicals to the surrounding rock. Metasomatism. Any pre-existing type of rock can be modified by the process of metamorphism. Transition to sedimentary. Rocks exposed to the atmosphere are variably unstable and subject to the process of weathering and erosion. Weathering and erosion break the original rock down into smaller fragments and carry away dissolved material. This fragmented material accumulates and is buried by additional material. While an individual grain of sand is still a member of the class of rock it was formed from, a rock made up of such grains fused together is sedimentary. Sedimentary rocks can be formed from the lithification of these buried small fragments. Clastic sedimentary rocks. The accumulation and lithification of material generated by living organisms, biogenic sedimentary rocks or fossils, or lithification of chemically precipitated material from a mineral-bearing solution due to evaporation precipitates sedimentary rock. With this, we come to the end of biogeochemical cycles. Thank you.